Hey Doc, I am back with another wonderful guest. I am so excited to have here with me Dr. Saumya Dave. She is a psychiatrist and she is an author. She is a private practice owner and she is a mom just like you. So welcome, Dr. Saumya.
Thank you so much, Dr. Toya. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I am so happy. I remember when I saw your post in BMD like, I don't know, months ago at this point about your book. I was like, oh, this is not even her first book. This is like multiple books and it's amazing. So I am very honored and excited to hear more about you and your story. So tell me how many kids you have, how long you've been married, just a little bit more about your background.
So I have two kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old, and they take up a lot of time and energy. Actually, I have to tell you that, you mentioned the BMD group where we first knew of
Right.
each other, and you share so much wisdom on that group that even when it's not posts, right, that I've written or you've written, I'll sometimes see what you've written about just doing all the things, just doing all the
Yeah.
things and the insights you share. And they've always been so helpful. And so, yeah, I try to be present for a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old in the mornings and the evenings and the weekends, try being the operative word. And then I have a private practice that I work in 3 days a week. And then the goal is to write 2 days a week. So it all sounds very nice and pretty symmetrical in my head. What ends up happening is that there are sick days and then there are things where things don't go right according to what we have planned always. And so there are a lot of shifts in those two writing days usually. And when I'm on deadline for a book or I have edits due, then sometimes one of my private practice days, I'll have to shift things so that I can make a little bit more space for writing. And when I do some segments on the news, which I was doing a monthly segment on NBC News in the mornings, that ends up taking up a good chunk of one of those Tuesdays as well. So what I'm trying to learn and accept right now is that sometimes our life goes in seasons and every season might look different, and what's needed from us and what's needed from the systems around us might also change in those different seasons.
Oh yeah, that's the end of the podcast right there.
We're done, everyone. Yeah.
You gave the punchline. That is it. That is amazing. Yes, I did not say that she also contributes to news. Amazing, amazing, but also real, right? And you mentioned how much of a balancing, like something gives on some days, and things don't always go to plan. And I think just being able to release and let the life go how it's gonna go in this season when the kids are so young, because it's so funny. You, me, and the person that I interviewed earlier, our kids are the same age. Like I
How
have a
old are your
5-year-old
kids?
and 5 and 2. So it's like
Wow.
we all had COVID babies.
Wow. Which
Yeah.
that on its own, I think we just get we get something for that every year, I'm convinced.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
Right.
What a
So
time.
yeah. So tell me about the season before kids. Like what were you doing? When did you meet your husband? All of that good stuff.
So the season right before kids, actually, my husband and I were just reflecting on this last night because of that wonderful feature on our phones that gives us memories. You know, that one where it tells us
Yeah.
1 year ago, 5 years ago. So we had one pop up from 2018, which was right before we had our first child. And I was in residency. So I was in residency from 2015 to 2019. And so it was a very standard resident schedule where, I was working during the day and then sometimes on evenings and weekends. Whenever I wasn't working at the hospital, I was trying to work on my novel. I ended up getting my book deal for my first two books. It became in one deal when I was a fourth year resident. So almost close to the end of my residency. So before that happened, in the in between, I was trying to just work on this manuscript and see what I was doing. And then going backwards to when I met my husband, we actually met in both of our last month of college. I always pause a little bit before I tell the meeting story because depending on if someone's a romantic comedy fan or not, they might think our
Yeah.
story is sweet. Okay, I
I
love
am.
it.
Yes.
I'm gonna relax a little bit. So
Yes.
he was in this all South Asian a cappella group at the University of Pennsylvania called Pen
Wait a
Masala.
minute. I feel like, okay, do you watch This Is Us? Do you know that
I
show?
don't, but I need to. I need
So
to.
it's gone and, they have reruns on Hulu. You should watch it. It's great. The what do you call it? The person that does composer. The composer went to Penn and was part of that a cappella group. That's how I knew that Penn had that a
What?
cappella.
That
Yes.
is amazing and makes me need to watch it even quicker. I
Yes.
love that so
The
much.
score is amazing.
Okay, that's incredible. I love that
Yeah.
so much. Thank you for the recommendation too. So I've been actually listening to them since middle school. They've been around since the 90s as a group, with the group members changing with, people
Yes.
graduating and coming in, of course. But they started releasing CDs when I was in middle school. So my best friend's older sister came home one day in Atlanta, where we were from, and she had the CD, and she said, "Oh, there are these guys that sing these songs a cappella. Here's their CD." So I became a huge fan. And then in high school, they came to Atlanta for a concert. I went. I was fangirling at this concert. And then in college, I went to college in Atlanta. They came for a concert when I was actually in college. At this point, I'm still a fan, and it's a little bit less acceptable because I'm probably older than many of the group members. And I was a senior in college, and I was also performing in the show. I was on a dance team, and so when I was backstage, I passed their dressing room door, and then when they came on stage and I was sitting in the front row, I saw him right away. He made the first announcements. He was the president at the time, and I turned to my friend sitting next to me and I said, "I think that guy is so cute." And I had one of those Casio digital cameras, that saved the picture in a little frame. I was very cool. And so I took a picture of him and went backstage and introduced myself, and we hit it off that night, actually. So
I
that
love
was,
it.
but yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's like, depending on who I'm saying the story to, I'm like, please feel free to laugh at me. It's
It
totally
is
fair.
amazing. That is like TV meet cute. I love it.
Thank you, thank you. So he's my first reader for everything. He did not read fiction until we met, and now he is my first reader for anything that I write, which is really
Wow.
wonderful.
Yeah, and I'm very interested in the writing history because
Yeah.
for you to have already gotten a deal in residency, like this was a part of your life. So please tell me more about that.
So I grew up reading a lot. I really, really loved series. I loved The Babysitter's Club. I loved Sweet Valley High. I loved Nancy Drew. I loved these characters with girls going out and just doing things and having these really deep friendships, and then just trying to figure out life along the way. And then when I was in high school and college, I just realized that there weren't as many books that had fictional books that had immigrants and children of immigrants as the main characters. And so in just exploring things with my own friends about what we wanted to do, how do we navigate certain communication gaps with our parents, how do we also honor the sacrifices they made for us, and all those different things that kept coming up, I wondered, well, where's the novel that actually shows the characters going through these things, and where are those stories, those everyday stories? And so then I decided to try writing one at the end of college, and it took me 10 years and over 200 rejections from literary agents, from editors. When I added them all up, they were far over 200 rejections before I ended up getting a book deal with a traditional publisher. So it was a journey. And unlike medicine, it was one of those where I learned as I went along. There wasn't a set path, which, I think it's so interesting to learn from both, because I've had a hard time in both. I've had a hard time in medical school and residency figuring things out on the go. And then in the creative path, it's also been a different type of learning. So I think I needed to learn how to have different relationships with failure
Yeah.
along the way. That's really helped me, honestly, more than the wins.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a part of like entrepreneurship or something that is outside of a clear path that really grows you.
Yeah. Did
Because
you feel that way too?
with entrepreneurship, definitely.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of failure that you learn from. My coach says, well, two of my coaches, that two of the greatest vehicles for personal growth is entrepreneurship and marriage. Like
Mm,
grow so much having to grow a business, having to sell, which is something that, a lot of doctors don't like to do, having to,
yes.
to promote a book, having to deal with all of those rejections. Like there is so much growth that happens, and the people that don't grow or can't grow usually don't make it.
Hmm.
So it has definitely been an education and part of what I pass on when I coach my clients and things like that. So yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah. I imagine as a coach, also you're building from the ground up your business, and then
Yeah.
also, right, all those things. So many pieces to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 200 rejections, and he just kept going.
Just, I kept thinking about what my much older than present self would feel. I kept thinking, if I'm in my 50s and it doesn't happen, will I regret not trying for
Yeah.
these years? And the answer was always yes, I will regret not trying. If
Mhm.
I get to a certain age that's down the line from that time, I will regret it. So I really befriended my future regrets. I really, really got close to them,
I
and
love
that
that.
helped.
I am very much be your future self now, and visioning and asking myself, am I going to be proud of this decision? Like when I look back, am I going to be proud that I did this or didn't do this, and allow that to guide me? Because I want to look back and say, yeah, that was great. At
Mhm.
least you tried, right? At least you
Yes.
went for it. So
Yes,
that's amazing.
absolutely. I love that, the mapping out your future self in that
Mm.
way. So true.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like you're trapping yourself in anything. It is just opening up. It's really like an expansive thing to think of this future self and be like, I want her to be proud of me and
Mhm.
proud of at least the effort. So yeah, I love that.
I was literally thinking the word expansive when you said
Yeah.
the word expansive. So I mean, we're exactly on the same page. One of my favorite couples therapists, Esther Perel, she says, "Oh, sometimes a relationship or a job, it can be an expansive place and not a
Yeah.
diminishing place." And I think sometimes that's such a helpful way to think about certain things rather than right or wrong or good or
Yeah.
bad, because so few things fit into those categories. But maybe expansive or diminishing can be a helpful framework.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this conversation already. So y'all met in undergrad at the end. And
Yes,
then what was the
sure
path?
did.
Is he a physician as well?
He is not. He works in tech.
Okay.
So he works for this company called Aura, and they make these
Oh,
rings
awesome.
that are
Yeah,
health
yeah.
trackers. So
Yeah.
he talks about health a lot, and
Yeah,
then he'll
yeah.
ask a lot of questions. So it's really fun. And he comes from a family of physicians, and so they all say it's okay now that he
Right.
married one.
Finally, he's
Just
like
for the little
acceptable.
bit. Yeah, but he's very interested in medicine. He's really interested in fiction. So we actually end up talking about work with each
Oh,
other all
oh,
the time. We talk about work
yeah,
nonstop together. So probably the first person I talk to about everything related to
yeah.
any job and vice versa.
That's
And
really nice.
it's a very special thing to have, of course, in a spouse. And then I think being able to enjoy talking to that person every day and enjoying just being with them and conversing with them, I think is such a powerful thing. Just never getting tired of talking to them. I think periods of stress happen where you might not be able to invest in one another as much as you'd like. But knowing that you love that trait in each other, I think just really is such a big thing. And I feel that way about my closest friends too. I want to
Yeah.
hear what's on their mind and what's making them curious and what's bothering them, what's intriguing them. And so I really think having those deep conversations is such a gift.
Yeah. I love that because it's the same thing with me and my husband. Like we love to talk about entrepreneurship, we love to talk about wealth building, and it's not in a, when you're in this phase where everything is about something practical for the house and or the
Yes.
kids. It's not even that. It's because we enjoy that type of thing. We love working together, and we've had some very rough periods that we have invested a lot of time and money into working through so that we
Hmm.
can continue enjoying being around each other. And all of this is so much easier when you have a supportive partner.
It really is. It really is. Is he in medicine as well?
No, he is so far out of medicine. That's like he was in the military, he's a cybersecurity engineer, now in mergers and
Wow.
acquisitions, like way, way out. But we are aligned in so many other ways. He's from the same country as I am and all this other stuff. So yeah.
Well, what I love is also that, right, people, whether it's your spouse or your friends or other people you connect with, we don't have to all be doing the same thing in
Yeah.
order to
Yeah.
support each other and learn from one another, which I think is
Yeah.
so amazing. So you were asking also about the path after. So we met in undergrad, and then I actually took some time off to write for a couple of years, and then I went to medical school. So I was supposed to go right after. And then I think meeting him really encouraged me to take some risks for the first time in my life. Up until then, I was very much a get good grades, be on the path, don't deviate from the path, be the eldest daughter, people pleaser, and
Yeah.
don't ever stray or cause any problems or ruffle any feathers. And something about just us being together and being able to talk to him about my dreams of being a writer, I think really gave me the encouragement to actually try it for the first
Yeah.
time.
Okay, I'm glad you touched on it a little bit. As the eldest daughter of Indian parents who are expecting you to do this one thing, how did they handle the writing business?
Exactly how you think they did. So it was a lot of what? Why? Why? I just don't understand. And
Yeah.
I see now, it took time for me to see this. It really did, that this was coming from a place of fear and unknown. It was coming from a lot of uncertainty. At the time, it felt like you're not supporting me when I'm changing my mind for the first time in my life. But I realized that, they came from a place of survival. And so for them, volitionally deviating from that feels incredibly scary. And so it's been such a journey to also see my own parents as people. And I think it's been such an important one for me that I continue to have, even as I'm parenting. I realized, wow, they were really young when they were doing this with kids the same age as my kids. They were figuring out a lot of other things too that I've had privileges to not have to figure out. And so they were very surprised. They were very against it. And then now they're just the biggest supporters. And so
Yeah.
it's wonderful for this last novel, The Guilt Pill, that came out. They threw a massive launch party in Atlanta. And all of their friends came, and it felt like a mini wedding reception, which if
Yeah.
anybody's ever been to a Daisy wedding,
Amazing.
it is another level. And so
Yeah.
it really did feel like that, but they organized all of it. They did all of that for me and to celebrate that. And so they just keep reminding me that we can actually have different relationships with the same people over
Yeah.
time. We really can. Those are evolving, growing things. They don't actually remain fixed at all. And I think that's a really important lesson for me to keep revisiting.
Yeah. And an important lesson for the doc that's listening right now, because it is a big part of my coaching, because I coach physician moms, right? And as you mentioned, as you're parenting, everything comes back from your childhood about your
Yes.
mother, about how you were raised, things that you didn't even realize were from then. So we talk a lot about relationships with parents. And my general overarching recommendation is to meet them where they are. And as you said, just realize the completely different context from which they are coming and realize that they would never have had the tools that you have now. Like you're coaching with me. Like nobody their age was trying to grow themselves and create their support systems or do any of these things. So giving them grace, forgiving them a little bit, and just meeting them where they are doesn't mean you have to forget if it was a traumatic experience or anything like that. But like you said, that level of understanding and empathy for your parents can be healing, and then
Yes.
also create a whole new world for a relationship that you can have now in this new phase of your life.
It's so true. And you said it so eloquently and beautifully. And I now, since our kids are 5 and 1, I now ask them, what was this like for you? And I'm actually learning about parts of them that existed before they became parents, because they were full human beings before they had us.
Can you
And
imagine?
right. Right. And so even now realizing, wait, this was a full person who then had to just hone in on responsibility and make their whole life about that. Well, what were they like? And so even getting to know these parts of themselves that they haven't been able to revisit, it's just been a very beautiful and fulfilling thing.
Yeah, that's really nice. I love that you have that. And in this phase as well, when they may be aging, they may be sick,
Mhm.
it's something that has become more evident that it is important just to know them a little bit better, because they don't have forever. And
Such an important reminder.
yeah, to look back and be like, wow, I knew this person and I knew why they made the decisions that they made and why they did some of the things that I may not have liked. I think it's a beautiful gift for us and our children.
Yes, yes. I also, you were saying about coaching physician moms. I think in medicine also, right, we tend to be such caretakers inherently. So we're always just attuned to other people's needs and what's
Yeah.
going on. And so to be able to shift that into your own personal relationships in a way where you also feel like you're gaining in a way, I think is such an important thing.
Yeah. Oh, I love this conversation so much.
Mm.
Okay.
Me
So
too.
you took your time off to write, and
Mhm.
then how was the transition from that to medical school?
It was very hard. It was very hard for me. It felt like I left this world of creativity and open ended thinking and being able to live in gray areas. And then I immediately had to go into the rigor of medical school, which I knew was going to be there. It was just, I think, a harsher transition than I would have expected. And when I look back, I used to have a lot of shame over feeling this way. And now I actually wish more people openly talked about this. I found medical school to be very difficult. I found it to be very difficult. And there were times when I wondered, is this for me? Because I don't know if the way I'm thinking really aligns to the way that's required for this system. Then, when I started learning about the origins of the medical system and how actually it doesn't fit a lot of people
Yeah.
who are in it, that really helped me. I think what you just used the word context, and I think that's such an applicable word in different ways. That the context in which we're learning and who's telling us what success is and where we need to be focusing, all those things really, really matter. So I found when I got to the clinical rotations, which at my school, like many other schools, it was third year and fourth year. When we got to do that, I had a much better time being able to engage with people directly. And I found that my favorite part of every day was when I could sit with a patient, learn their story. If their family members were there, learn about them through their family members' viewpoints. And it was just it was so rewarding. And it felt like something I could do for hours. And I did my psychiatry rotation last that year and learn that that's a huge part of what we do is we try to learn people's stories and we try to get as much information about them as possible and really try to hold this space for them to share more about their story or where they're at. And so then I ended up choosing that as my field. And residency, I absolutely loved because I felt like I found my people. Everybody who I was in my class with also had the same curiosity and love
Yeah.
for learning about people and why they did the things they did, what motivates them, what defeats them, all those things. And the program I went to, Mount Sinai Beth Israel in New York, it was very therapy heavy in its training.
Mhm.
And so I got training in cognitive behavioral therapy, family systems therapy,
Yeah.
so many different types of therapy that I just found fascinating, that I finally felt like I found my place. But I only say that because if anybody here is listening and they're somewhere on the path medically where things don't feel like they fit, that doesn't mean that's the end
Yeah.
of it. You're still a physician no matter what you go forward to do. And there are many, many routes. Maybe there are even some that haven't come on your radar yet. I really did think that there was only one set path when I was in medical school, and that path maybe wasn't for me, but I was happy to be proven wrong.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important. And, I don't talk a lot about medical school. It's all a blur. My medical school,
Right?
it was a long time ago, but it was a lot of fun.
It's
Where I was, and I don't remember feeling exactly that way. You know what? I remember being like, do y'all expect me to do clinical medicine and study at the same time? Like, how could I
right.
do that? And then I was like, but nobody told me that that's what medicine is. You have to continue to learn. I feel like whoever's listening, if you're a medical student, FYI, that is your future. That's pretty much the only thing I remember from medical school, but it is an important reminder that if it doesn't feel right, it may not be you. It may be the system. It may be that you haven't found it yet. So I love that, when the last rotation, you're like, ah, this is it. Psych was my least favorite. And
Really?
yeah, being on that locked ward, I felt so
Oh yeah.
comfortable.
Yeah, that's fair. Of course, of course. It's a very, I mean, it's a very distinct environment.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It really is. It is.
Yeah. Okay. So during all this time, your husband is in tech, you are in residency, and you get your book deal. How was it managing the book deal and training?
So it's funny because I was so cool and was choosing to write when I wasn't at the hospital and working shifts. Having to actually write and turn it into someone felt
Yeah.
very gratifying. I thought, wow, I'm not just giving myself homework, it's actually
Yeah.
going to someone. And now I have, in traditional publishing, you typically get an agent, a literary agent, and then the literary agent actually then sells the book to an editor at a publishing house. And so once the literary agent is starting to speak to the editors, the author's actually taking a side seat for a little bit while those conversations are happening. Then when editors show interest, they come and they speak to the interested editors. But at the end of all that, if a book deal comes out of it, the author now has an agent, an editor, a marketing director, and a publicist. And so you kind of go from doing this thing on your own for
Yeah.
however long, and you now have people who are invested in it. So I found it to be a very gratifying process. The publishing timelines are also, it couldn't be more different from medicine in the sense that I got the book deal in 2018 for the first book to come out in 2020. So there's usually a 2-year span between when you
Wow.
sign the contract to when the book will come out, just because of how book schedules are done. And so it actually felt, so like there was so much good
Yeah.
in that way. I was like, wait, why am I not working on something every day? It's very interesting how I was just also telling my husband this last night. There's so much synchrony in this conversation, which I love, that the way medical training makes you work and kind of teaches you how you work in different environments. I think no matter what you do after that, it sticks with you. It just changes you in a way. And
Yeah.
so he'll say, your baseline for taking a break is not in the right place. Like,
Right.
and I'm like, but for years, there's no lunch break and there's no
Yeah.
this, and you work nights and weekends
There's no
and
pee break. There's
there's no any,
nothing.
right? You hold it in, you learn how
Yeah.
to disconnect from your body.
Yeah.
And so it's so interesting seeing how that might manifest in other parts of your life and even other parts of another job.
Yeah.
And for me, that definitely happened with publishing, where I found it to be a place where I could slow down a little bit. And then I felt very efficient and eager to move on to the next thing. But it just works on a different timeline. It's a completely different type
Yeah.
of work. So medicine,
Yeah.
I think, has just really changed the way I work overall.
Yeah. So you have the deal. When did you all actually get married?
We got married in 2015. So we got married
Oh, okay.
between in the last year of medical school, right? 1 year or 1 month after medical school graduation.
Gotcha. Okay.
So got married and then started intern year a month later. So all
Gotcha.
of those things. And we were actually long distance because I was in medical school in Georgia. We had been living in New York, and then I moved to New York for residency. So
Gotcha.
my first year as an intern was also newlywed, living together
Yeah.
for the first time. A lot of big changes, but being able to even come home at the end of a long day at work and spend time together just was really, we never took it for granted, really.
Yeah. So did you choose to delay having a baby, or how did that come
I
about?
did want to wait till the later in residency. And
Yeah.
I was actually one of those people who, if I was told, hey, you can do this much later, I would have probably said, okay,
Ah,
all right, like, let's
yeah.
do that. Let's do that. I knew that I wanted to feel like I got some momentum with writing and with doctoring before going forward with that. And then it honestly just happened a lot quicker than we anticipated. So almost the end of my fourth year of residency is when I got pregnant the first time. And then, as you know, of course, so our first one was born December 2019. And then I was planning to start my private practice in March of 2020.
Yeah.
And then, everything happened for everyone then. So
Yeah.
so life as we knew it changed for the first year and a half of our son's life.
Wow. So I'm
Yeah.
very interested in the choice that you made to go directly into private practice. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I knew that I was so interested in therapy. And for us, when we were doing therapy training in residency, we were assigned a supervisor. And my supervisor is incredible. And she had psychoanalytic training. And so she encouraged me to do a psychoanalytic fellowship. There was a special fellowship being offered that residents could do while they were in residency. So I also did that my fourth year of residency here in New York. And it was wonderful. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. So then I began speaking to her about what it would mean to start a private practice and just have that one on one relationship where I meet with someone once or twice a week, every
Yeah.
week. And so she told me that, once you get it started, I will start referring people to you. So there were
Nice.
already a couple people that I thought I could start with that, the 3 month postpartum mark. And then my
Yeah.
plan was to keep kind of going up from there. At the time, I was also teaching narrative medicine once a month to interns. So it's this new branch. Yeah, it's this new branch started by a woman named Dr. Rita Sharon at Columbia University, where she basically thought of using literature and art, essays, poetry, so different forms of art in order to teach clinical concepts. So, for example, one of the classes I teach, we look at Van Gogh's portrait of the bandaged ear, and then we look at Edvard Munch's Scream. And we look at what, both of them side by side and individually. And I asked psychiatry interns, what does this bring up in you? Does this remind you of a clinical encounter of yourself? And it really leads to these fun and rich discussions that
Mm.
I don't know if they would take place if we were not looking at art. And so it's a way to combine clinical medicine and art. So I was doing that at the time as well. So my plan was to kind of ease into that. And then because of the COVID-19 pandemic, that just didn't start for some time. So then I had a very, very small virtual practice for some time. And then it grew just later and slower
Yeah.
than anticipated.
Wow. Okay. That is so interesting. I've never heard about that. Okay.
Yeah.
How was your pregnancy, birth, postpartum? Oh, that if you are not watching this on YouTube, that was a face. So tell me about that face.
I had hyperemesis gravidarum for
Uh,
both of my pregnancies. So I began feeling nauseous and vomiting pretty early on, and it lasted until birth. For my first pregnancy, because I was still in residency, I hadn't told anybody I was pregnant. And that was when New York still had plastic bags. And so I would actually carry a plastic bag with me, like a stash of plastic bags with me on the units. And I would then throw up in a plastic bag and then cut back
wow.
as if nothing happened. And so I just think that, right, like we go through so much when our bodies are going through things. We're also carrying so much on different levels. But looking back on that, I wish I'd opened up to more people about that because I was in a very supportive program and I had amazing coworkers and an incredible program director. And I know if I said that, I'm struggling and vomiting around the clock, I know they would have stepped in. I think I just felt like you were saying earlier about doing all the things, I felt like I almost had to prove something to
Yes.
myself that I can do it. I can do it. This is not going to hold me back. This is not going to hold me down. And listening to my body, I think, was a journey that I then learned because of having kids, that is a non-negotiable. It's not
Yeah.
something that we can keep ignoring and not doing.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I don't feel like we ever forget. You know what I mean? We don't
Yeah.
forget. We don't forget. It lives in there forever.
And it's bad enough to have it, but for it to last the entire time, because you're just like waiting. It's like, is it going to be done?
You're just waiting.
Is it
You're
going to
just
be
waiting.
done? Wow. Okay, but how was birth? Better?
Birth was great.
Good.
Wonderful OB, and it was just wonderful. And then postpartum was tough. I found that becoming a mom, going through all those changes physically, hormonally, emotionally, all the changes you have with the people around you too, that really took more of a toll than I think I would have imagined. And there were a lot of things where I felt like I wasn't given a heads up. I don't know by who. I don't know who was going to give me this heads up, but
Right.
I thought, where's my memo? I thought there would be a memo on my desk or popping up in the air in front of me saying, by
Yeah.
the way, sleep
Yeah.
deprivation might bring out the worst in you.
Yes.
And, but again, I see now how parts of residency made me feel like I could do it. I thought been sleep deprived before. I've been
I said
tired
the exact
before.
same.
Come on.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. I was
Right?
like, I'm an OBGYN. I know what fatigue is.
Oh my gosh. Like I help people through these things. Come on. I can do it. Totally. And so, yeah. And then it is, and then it really isn't. It
Yeah.
really, really isn't. And so I think I would have given myself more permission to rest and to take
Yeah.
that time and let it unfold the way it was supposed to. But I also have this research that I did actually for my novel, because my novel has a postpartum CEO, actually, as the main character. But what I found in my research was that women who are high functioning and type A, they tend to actually have to grapple with a lot when they become moms, because they think that hard work is just going to, and over functioning is going to lead to all the answers. But babies are unpredictable
Yeah.
and they're uncertain, and sleep deprivation isn't good on anybody. So
Yeah.
I think sometimes, right, they hold these rigid standards. I definitely did,
Yeah.
to what's possible during the postpartum time. And so that first pregnancy and postpartum, I think, was a huge learning journey. So I just put it all into a book. It's like very,
I
just
mean,
put all the pain into,
yeah,
it's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
so you mentioned strain on the relationships. How did that manifest in your life?
So my husband did not have paternity leave for the first one. And so I remembered, and he, also was actually sleep deprived because he wouldn't let me gatekeep. And what I mean by that is that I would
Yeah.
tell him, you have to work in the morning. You have to work. Let me just do the night stuff. And he'd say, no, you're up all day. So it was
Right.
actually interesting looking back that I even told him, like, no, you have things to do. I'm doing this. And so he didn't have leave. And so he felt a lot of guilt actually for not being able to be there more. And then I felt, to be honest, very envious looking at him, because he was wearing the same clothes and he was going to the same job and he was talking to adults. And I remember there was one night he went out with coworkers and he came back and he was like, it was great. And I was like, what do you mean it was great? True, here, true.
Like, don't tell me about that. I'm not interested.
No, what do you mean? And so it was definitely, I think, a huge adjustment for both of us in so many different ways. And then all of what's left over is going into this vulnerable being who needs you. So learning how to prioritize time for ourselves as a couple, it's something that we still actually revisit, because I think it's an ongoing process. It's not something that
Yes.
I think we have figured out. We actually are like, well, as kids' needs change, we also need to change how we can keep investing in one another and showing up for one another. And I will say it takes, for us at least, it's taken a lot of active planning, a lot of prioritization, a lot of intention. I think if we just left it to figure it out, I don't think that it would have gone
Yeah.
well for either of us, because it was something we had to get ahead of proactively.
Yes. And I think that is good recommendation for anyone listening, because a lot of it is something else that we aren't taught about how important it is to make time for each other, because you are told, you are conditioned to give it all to the baby. And then the
Yes.
husband is just off at the side, dealing with his own things in his own way. And depending on the relationship, how he was raised, there's the contention there, there's the default parent, it's a setup for a contentious relationship, and
Mhm.
looking around and being like, what happened to my marriage? So
Absolutely.
you definitely have to talk about it. Like, I
Mhm.
recommend just talk about what the expectations are, talk about all of it. And then, as you said, be intentional and get ahead of it, because you'll look around and be like, I don't recognize myself or you or
Yes.
us.
Yes. What happened? Where did we go? And
Yeah.
for our second child, he had paternity leave for
Yeah.
3 months.
Nice.
And we learned from all the things the first time. And so we also were able to get more support around help at night, and then things in the house. And then we both were home for 8 to 12 weeks. And so it was a night and day experience from the first time. So, we were talking about systems before, but the systems when it relates to parental leave and
Yeah.
other forms of support, I think also plays such a big role in how that period of time is going to go for people.
Yeah. So tell me about like the two situations, because one was COVID. I mean, you were a little bit further along in the postpartum
Yeah. Yes.
journey.
3 months. Yep. Mhm.
Yeah. So what
Yep.
kind of support did y'all have, if any at all, for the first?
So we actually lived with my parents. So I actually went home to Atlanta to give birth. And this was before, of course, anything happened lockdown wise. And so I went in November. the month before our son was born, and I gave birth in Atlanta. And then the plan was to come back when my, fourth trimester was done. And then we just ended up staying for a year and a half.
Wow.
So
Wow.
we were in a house with my parents and my grandparents and our baby and my siblings. And my parents took full-time care of my grandparents. And so it was a very, very interesting time where there was so much caregiving going on in different ways. And there were times when I saw my mom just making different meals for different generations of
Wow.
people just around the clock. And so I felt taken back to parts of my own childhood where I just saw her working and
Yes.
giving around the clock. It just happened all over again. And then I saw her doing it, at a different age. And so that was definitely tough on me. And then, of course, I regressed into an angsty teenager randomly without any warning. So I'd be holding
Yeah.
my infant and then I'd be like, why are you telling me what to eat?
Yeah.
Why are you telling me this Indian dish with fenugreek is going to make me heal? Please stop. And it's, oh, I mean, I think we were all, and then we didn't have any contact with people outside of
Yeah.
that. So we were just seeing each other in the house all the time. And of course, that was such an incredible privilege, compared to so many people who were in complete real isolation,
Yeah.
especially with young kids and even without people who were just in that. So that was incredible. And what's also true is that we just saw different versions of each other. I mean, throughout that year and a half, it really was a time where we truly saw all sides of one another. And I think we're all better for that because
Yeah.
I really learned the meaning of what does it mean to have people show up for you when you're feeling your worst, and then you doing the same for them. I mean, I think that time was hard for everyone.
Yeah. Oh, that's a lot of people.
It was a lot of people. I watched a lot of TV shows curled up in my room when I was thumping.
God. And I talk about that all the time about the isolation of postpartum, even when you're surrounded by people.
Yes, yes.
Because are your needs being acknowledged? Like, do people realize that you're struggling? Are they just focused on the baby? It can feel
Yes.
isolating. And then you're like, I also don't want to talk to you. Just want to be alone.
Absolutely. I definitely felt, to me, in the place I was in, I felt like everybody cared about the baby. So there were many times where I felt, what about me? What about me? And that's where I think having people who really get it and are looking out for you, I think it's everything. No matter whether you're postpartum or whether you're in another season of your life, but knowing that there are
Yeah.
people who are just thinking about you, I think goes such a long way.
Yes. So you can feel supported and seen. Yeah. So talk to
Totally.
me about the difference. What did you have for the second baby? Like
So
how?
for the second baby, I actually didn't know if I even wanted a second baby. So I should actually say that
Tell
first.
me
I
about that.
thought,
Yes.
yeah, I thought after that experience, our older child also, he had a lot of health problems. His stomach was at the 0th percentile when he was born, and so
Oh,
he struggled with feeding a lot. He struggled with sleeping. I imagine because he was probably very hungry,
right.
and so he went through a lot, and we felt so awful for him that after that year and a half was done and we moved back to New York, we actually both said, I don't know if we can do any version
Yeah.
of this again. I think we want to just put all of our energy into being there for him and
Yeah.
supporting him. And then he grew up and out of those things, and now he's the sweetest, most fun boy. Or like we just love hanging out with him. And so I always tell people I kind of needed to forget COVID everything before even considering doing it again. So in 2023, I told my husband, you know what? I actually can be open to this. Maybe we
Yeah.
can see if this works out. And then it worked out the next month. So it was like, it took, I said a year and then it was a month.
Right.
And so then I got pregnant much quicker than anticipated the second time. And it was, again, I think knowing what to expect helps a lot. So even though I was having nausea and vomiting again, I knew it was coming. And that actually just made it a little bit less painful and frustrating. So that helped a lot. And then we saved up money for things. So we said, let's allocate X number of dollars for a night nurse if we can have that. And then for someone to come, help us during the day. My husband got benefits from work at home to have someone actually come help us at home for the first weeks as well, which was
Nice.
amazing. His company did that. And then we both took leave. So I didn't take any leave the first time because I was thinking I'm working for myself. I was also on
Yeah.
book deadline the first time. So,
Right.
and I didn't feel like I could. And this time I said, no, I'm going to take time and do it. So I think we made a lot of intentional choices that made it nice. And then there wasn't a pandemic. So
Right.
So
There's
friends
that.
could come visit and then they could
Yeah.
leave, right? Family could come visit and then they could leave. I say that because both parts are important. So yeah, it was just different in every single way. But yeah, I'm so grateful for that because I think sometimes when we go through a tough time, of course, we say time heals and all that, but I think sometimes we also need positive experiences to fill that space to show us that too, if that makes
Yeah.
sense, that
It
it
does.
can be better. And so that was definitely what having the second time around felt like.
Yeah, yeah. And I usually don't ask this, and you don't have
Mhm.
to answer. I'll cut it out. But are y'all done?
Yes, we are. So, but I feel like were you in our house? Because just over the weekend, they were, when your kids are in a really good place, when everybody's just behaving so
Yeah,
sweetly and it's the best possible scenario. And that's when your brain starts thinking, oh, was this really that much? And then of course by that evening, I was like, no, I think I
right,
know my limits now. I think I know my
right.
limits. So we are, it's so interesting because I was someone who didn't even know I wanted kids at all.
Mhm.
And now I have two. And so it's just been such a journey in being open and knowing that it's okay to change your mind and knowing that, right? Like it's okay to make decisions when you have more information and you feel like you have a more solid ground to even make choices from. These are just things I was never told or advised about growing up. So
Definitely. Yeah, those are all the things that I tell my clients. She is giving y'all free game here. Yes, because the biggest one that you said is the way I say it is you have the right to change your mind. Like it is a right.
yes, yes.
Because as physicians, as women, we are along this path. This is the path. This is what you're supposed to do. And if you do want to change your mind, there's this like internal conflict of, well, what will people think? And this isn't right. And I spent so much time and invested so much and all of these things. But you have the right to change your mind
Yes.
and wait and see if you want to do XYZ.
Mhm.
So I love that you said that.
Yeah, and even get more information. I've had friends who, when they got more information about what their fertility rate looked like, they
Yeah.
even said, "Oh, actually, even getting that information helped me decide the timing
Mm,
of what things needed to be or what." So sometimes even
yeah.
getting more information and even approaching your own counsel of people you trust can help us with those things.
Yeah. And you don't have to figure out everything alone. It
Ah,
is
that's
just
so true.
it's better to ask people and ask for help and ask for advice, something else that we are trained that is not it's not good.
Oh, totally. We're told figure it out. Just look it up.
Figure it out.
Figure it out. Why are you
Exactly.
asking me?
Exactly. So it's so many different ways. Like it's amazing that you started off saying that at the beginning because residency, this type of training that we do, teaches us so many bad habits, so many things that set us up for burnout in different ways in life. And we really need to unlearn it because, in general, the system, as you said, was not meant for women of childbearing age or women at all,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
we just need to make it our own.
It's so true. This might sound like the most random example. I promise it's related, but I will actually often ask someone in therapy if they're a physician, I'll say, do you know when you have to go to the bathroom? Do you listen?
Yeah.
And a lot of times the answer is no, I just hold it and I could, yeah, right? The most basic thing because we're taught to ignore and numb and disconnect from our bodies because that's what the
Yeah.
job requires. So,
That is what it requires. I
mhm.
I distinctly remember my very first client texting me to celebrate that she paused before they called her to the OR to go pee. And it was this
Wow.
big deal that she chose herself in that way and said, you know what? I know they need me. I'm gonna be there for a while. I need to pee. Let me go.
Wow.
And we celebrated that.
That is, I mean, that's amazing.
I mean, it's also sad.
Right? Right? The fact that it is amazing is,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. Totally. It's
Yeah.
both.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this has been absolutely amazing. And I've really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like we could go on and on forever. But I do want to hear more about this last book. Tell me everything. How was it
Oh,
inspired?
thank you so much. So the guilt bill was inspired actually by a few friends who told me before I had my first baby. They said you're going to feel really guilty, and just don't even expect not to. It's going to happen. So they said it in this very inevitable type of way. And then when they began opening up to me more about their guilt, they would tell me about the things they couldn't do for themselves because they felt
Mm,
too guilty. So one friend said, "Oh, my husband said go take a solo trip, but I just feel too bad. I can't do it." And another friend said, "Oh, he said go get your nails done." And I feel too guilty. So it's always the guilt. And then in my private practice during the day, sometimes I will give medications to help with some
yeah,
symptoms. And so I began thinking, what if I could give them a pill that just turned off their guilt for hours at a time, not days, not
yeah,
months, but what about something for just hours? What would my friends do? What would they give themselves permission for? So then I got inspired by the tech world that my husband's in. And I've always been very fascinated by founders. I think they just to build something from the ground up that didn't exist before.
yeah.
I am blown away by people who can do that. I think it takes so much tenacity. So I had the idea of a founder who comes across her mentor in the tech space, this woman named Liz Anderson, who's in pharmaceuticals. And that Liz tells my main character, Maya, I have this secret pill. It gets rid of guilt in women. I think it's what you need to give yourself a leg up during this really busy time, because Maya's 3 weeks postpartum when she
Yeah.
meets Liz. And so the book follows Maya's journey, just being able to selectively turn off her guilt as she's postpartum, trying to raise funding for her company. And then she finds out what happens when you keep doing that. And, does guilt exist for a reason? And is there a way that we actually lose who we are a little bit when we feel too little guilt for too long?
Mhm.
And so her story goes into just a journey of her unraveling and then finding her way back to herself.
Oh, this sounds amazing.
Oh, thank you. I'll send you a copy. I'll send you a copy.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Yes. So tell me, where can they find the book? And are you you're not still doing press, are you? Because I
I'm
saw you
do
doing like some tours and stuff.
So I did a book tour in April and May, and then I'm actually going to do another round. My paperback is coming out in February.
Ah,
So it came out in hardcover in April, and then the paperback's coming out in February. So I'll do another tour for that. And it can be found wherever books are sold. So
yeah.
I love indie bookstores. And so
Mhm.
I'm always a fan of supporting local independent bookstore and ordering it from there. But yeah, it's sold wherever books are. So wherever you like to buy books.
Amazing. Amazing.
Thank you.
So are you planning to continue writing as you continue your medical practice?
Yes. So I am turning in the synopsis and chapter summaries for my next one tomorrow. And it's about, it's also speculative again, but it's about a woman who learns that perimenopause helps her access her rage and
Oh my.
what that unleashes in her. So it's an exploration of feminine rage.
That is amazing. So if now that I learned how book
Mhm.
publishing works,
Yeah.
so I'm expecting 2027, is that right?
Likely, yes, yes. We'll find out
Okay.
more in the next month, hopefully. But yeah, it's usually about two years. Sometimes it gets pushed up if they think it's ready or there's space
Yeah.
within the market. And so, but likely in 2 years. And then I'm also working on my first nonfiction book. It's about being overwhelmed. So
Mm.
it's for everyone who is told to wake up earlier as the advice to
Yeah.
do more, but they just can't
Yeah. Yeah.
possibly do that because they're already sleep deprived enough. So
Right. There are only so many hours in the day. Oh my gosh.
right. So
This sounds amazing. I'm so glad
oh,
we're
thank
able
you.
to talk and
Me
tell people
too.
where they can, besides your book, where can they find out more about you? Are you on social media? All of those things.
Oh, thank you. I'm at on Instagram at Saumya Dave. And then, yeah, I think that's the main place. And my website is saumyadave.com. Otherwise, I've tried a couple TikTok videos. Are you on TikTok?
I
So,
used to be.
yeah. So it's a little push and pull, but maybe we don't go there.
That is hilarious. Okay, this has been absolutely amazing. We are so aligned on so many different things. So now I definitely have to read your book. And I feel like your patients are well served with, just the way that you speak about certain things. I can tell the care that is there and the therapy background shines through. Um, so I'm very glad that we were able to do this.
Oh my gosh, me too. And I feel the same way about your clients. Really, that's incredible. You're very lucky. Thank you. This was great.
Of course. Let me know. Is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners before you go?
I think that spaces like your podcast just create a feeling of community and feeling less alone. And so I think spreading the word about that can just go such a long way for anybody else who's feeling like, am I the only one? Or where are my people who get what I'm going through? So I would just say, people listen to this episode or any of your other episodes to just share the love, because I think we need more of that right now.
Yes, I did not ask
No,
you to say that, Doc. So
no,
for
she
that,
didn't. She didn't. I just think you get, seriously,
yes.
it's true.
And leave a 5-star review while you're
Yes,
there. So
yes, they
it
help.
will, yes, exactly. Say how wonderful Dr. Soumya is because she
Mm.
is. All right. I will see you all on the next episode of Stethoscopes and Strollers. Bye.